This is a three-part series where I rank the Tintin books, just because if it wasn't, then it would be super long. In the first episode, I went over the worst of the Tintin books. In the second one, this one, I will go over the mediocre Tintin books, and in the last one, the next one, I will go over the good Tintin books. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then go watch the first one. I'll try to put a link in the description. Wow, that makes me sound like a real fancy YouTuber, eh? Okay, so this is the point where we get past the age like a banana left in the middle of the swamp part of the books, and we get onto the ones that are actually good to read. I wouldn't really strongly recommend most of these to a friend. I have other books for that, but they're alright. So, here we go. Number 14. The Crab with the Golden Claw. Just before we start, as an interesting side note, this book is a good 40% of what the Tintin movie is based on, but we'll get to that later, and the other 40% being The Secret of the Unicorn. So after getting kidnapped, Tintin finds himself on the Caribou Jean and meets Captain Haddock for the first time, who has been mutinied by his first mate, who is part of a drug smuggling ring. Tintin and Captain Haddock escape and hijack a seaplane which crashes in the desert. They make their way back to civilization with the help of a friendly lieutenant. They meet the Thompson twins and bust the drug smuggler's ring. They all live happily ever after. The Crab with the Golden Claw is pretty much the ultimate standard Tintin book. One main villain, one henchman, one Tintin, one Captain Haddock, one Snowy, two Thompson twins, a few exotic locations, and a drug smuggling ring. This book is well put together and fun. Number 13. Tintin and the Picaros. Captain Haddock and Professor Calculus travel to South America to depose a dictator, a real fancy-dress fascist, as Haddock puts it. Tintin opts to stay behind and shows up later to rescue them. Captain Haddock and Professor Calculus meet up with General Alcazar, who has been leading a resistance, and rescue Bianca Castafiore, who was arrested by said fancy-dress fascist, but not before messing around in the jungle for a bit. They all return home safely and live happily ever after. Tintin and the Picaros holds its own as a Tintin book, with a relatively standard plot without many twists, but with enough action and intrigue to make it interesting. So yeah, a fine Tintin book and a good read. Number 12. The Calculus Affair. The Calculus Affair is not, in fact, about two differential equations having a scandalous affair, but is, in fact, about Professor Calculus. The book starts off with a curse afflicting Captain Haddock's mansion. Glass begins to break all around the house, and nobody can figure out why until they stumble upon Professor Calculus's secret laboratory in the basement, where he has been working on a machine that can break glass with sound. When a man breaks into the laboratory, Tintin and Captain Haddock realize that Calculus must be in trouble, and leave for Geneva, Switzerland. They are almost killed by assassins, and save a man from drowning who looks like Adolf Hitler. They are almost killed again by a planted bomb, and meet the Thompson twins in a hospital. Tintin and Haddock go after Calculus, and after a failed helicopter and then a failed car chase, they catch a plane to Borduria, a made-up Balkan country, where they believe Calculus has been taken to. Bianca Castafiore makes a cameo, and they disguise their way into re-kidnapping Professor Calculus. They then proceed to roll nothing but 20s on their escape attempts, and avoid car crashes, tanks, blockades, landmines, and more. They make it back safely to Marlin's Bike Hall, and live happily ever after. The Calculus Affair is a pretty nice read. The story flows together pretty well, and we get to meet a variety of interesting characters. There are some parts where they get stupidly lucky, and it's kind of hard not to see the plot armor, but there are some good chase scenes, and the jokes are a little bit more funny than usual. So yeah, a very nice book. Number 11. The Lake of Sharks. Rostopopoulos has a machine that can make perfect fake replicas of anything, and he uses it to commit many a crime. And so Tintin, the captain, and Professor Calculus travel to a far-off land, meet quite a few interesting people, and capture the bad guy. There's a really cool underwater fortress and tank, and many interesting sciencey magic devices. This was the first Tintin book I got, so I may be ranking it just a little bit higher than it deserves, just because I think I've read it about 20 times, but still, it has an interesting story and characters, and they all interact in a pretty interesting way. The action is pretty interesting, and the artwork is slightly different from the rest of the Tintin books, which gives it a different feel. Number 10. King Ottokar's Scepter. Tintin pokes his nose into the business of some Soldavian people. Soldavia is a made-up Balkan country, by the way. And he ends up going to Soldavia with a sigliographer. And no, I will not tell you what a sigliographer is. You're going to have to look that one up yourself. So Tintin gets thrown out of a plane and survives, learns of an attempt to steal the sacred scepter of King Ottokar by the sigliographer he came with. He meets the king after a kidnapping attempt, but the sigliographer was too fast, and the scepter has already been stolen. Tintin, the royal guard, and the Thompson twins chase after the thieves to get the scepter back. Tintin receives a royal thank you, and they all live happily ever after. King Ottokar's Scepter is overall a very solid Tintin book. With an interesting setup and a great resolution, the world building around Sildavia is great. So yeah, overall, a good Tintin book. And that, my dear viewers, brings us to the end of the second part in this 3-part series. Be sure to look out for the next episode where I'll be reviewing the best of the Tintin books. This has been Widdershins of the Swadcast, and have a wonderful day.